Brill. Thanks everyone for coming along this evening. Welcome to another episode of Creating Careers live with Health Education England. Tonight we are having a look at social care meets primary care. We'll be on for about an hour this evening. I'm going to go through some housekeeping really quickly just before we get started. You are being recorded on this meeting, and the recording will be made available on demand, just so you're aware of that. And we would be grateful for our attendees if you keep your cameras and your mics off as much as possible, just that helps us at the bandwidth and how many people are on the call. And you will be able to see a chat box. It might be at the top or bottom of your screen, depending on kind of where you've got your Zoom set up. And that's how you can kind of communicate with us. Post any questions that you've got in there, and you'll also be interacting with one of the sessions via the chat box. If anybody has got any issues with that, just give us a shout. This is a really quick kind of overview of what we'll be looking at tonight. We'll be handing over to Leslie Ann for an interactive information session, which will be possibly one of the best bits. And then we'll go straight into our interviews, and Sharon's going to be doing our interviews this evening. We do ask you to stay for the full kind of hour of the session, because we'll cover next steps at the end of it, with just the other bits you need to know and how you can make sure you get the absolute most out of this in terms of value added. As you will have seen when you signed up, this isn't a one-off, it's one of a series of webinars that we'll be delivering throughout the rest of the academic year. I'll give you a reminder at the end how you can sign up for more of these, but we really do encourage you to get stuck in, come along to lots of different ones, find out about the different healthcare careers, see how they intersect, and just give yourself kind of a broader base knowledge. So the next one that we've got before Christmas will be the Allied Health Professions on the 9th of December, and that's focusing on occupational therapists and physiotherapists. And then you can see through here kind of a few of the other ones that we've got coming up, but I will show you how to get onto that website again at the end. As a reminder, you are joining students from across the Northwest today on this session, and no matter kind of where you are, you're able to receive support from an organisation that is local to you. So you can kind of see who they are on here, just the names, but if you need any more information or you'd like some email addresses, contacts, just pop it in the chat. So that was a very quick overview from me. So I will now hand over to Leslie Ann to get stuck into her interactive session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to share my screen, and hopefully you can all see that with no problems, and we'll go from the beginning there. Can everyone see that full screen?
Yes.
Yes, okay, brilliant. So with Creating Careers, those who've been on multiple episodes, or if this is your first episode, this may be new to you, we set pre-work with every episode. That is to make sure you are as prepared as possible for what is in store, and you can ask, informed questions and basically digest all the great info that is on offer for you today. So we want to use this part of the webinar to make sure you get some feedback on that pre-work, make sure we can give you feedback whether you've understood the key concepts that we wanted you to, or gives us a chance to correct any misconceptions. If you didn't get a chance to do the pre-work, get involved anyway. Hopefully it'll give you some good learnings and prepare you ready for the main segment of today's webinar. Please get as involved as possible. The more you put into it, the more you get out of it. If anything, just save me from looking at a screen and to absolute emptiness. Engage with me. Allow me to have something to share with people, please. The more you put in, the more you get out. And what I would say is, if you share your answers and your feelings with your fellow students, that helps them too. It really does. So get involved and get as engaged as possible. So what we're going to do, as you know, today's session was social care meets primary care. So how we're going to start off is, I want to check your understanding of social care against primary care. Do you know what the differences are based on the pre-work and the links that we set you? So as a start off, you're going to have a poll that comes up, and I want you, for each question, to tell me, is this job role, does it sit within social care or does it sit within primary care? So click on your Zoom poll to tell me what job role this fits within. So our first one is dentist. So does a dentist sit within social care or do they sit within primary care? Get your voters in, make sure you vote and let me know what you feel. Where do you think they sit in the dentist? Not my favourite, the dentist. In fact, I have to say I almost hate going. Where I have to go, it always costs me a fortune. Okay, brilliant. So our answers are in and we are primary care is storming it. Wonderful stuff. So next one, say more of the same. So what do you feel about optometrist? I'm always very proud of myself when I can pronounce that correctly. Optometrist, looking at the eyes, would you say that's primary care or social care? Let's get your answers in. Thank you so much for engaging. I really, really appreciate it. Oh, social care is going up and down. Fantastic to those who voted. Yeah, primary care is where we should be looking towards. I will give a summary at the end of both of them just to reinforce your learning. Okay, next one. Activities worker. So someone who may organise social events, trips out for people who are in need. What sector do we think they're working in? Fantastic, social care. You've got that spot on. Next one. Community pharmacist. So pharmacist in your local neighbourhood who you would go for medication. They in primary care or social care? Watching those answers come through. Thank you again for such good engagement. Brilliant. Primary care is winning. We're generally so far getting in the right direction. That's brilliant to see. Okay, next one. Rehabilitation worker. So someone who could support someone to live independently, maybe after illness or after an injury. Do we think they're in primary care or social care? Social care stormed that. Well done. Brilliant. Okay, on to our next one. Care worker. So if you're working to support someone in need with all aspects of their life, whether it's their personal care, whether it's their social care, physical needs, meals, brilliant. Social care is absolutely stormed that one. Okay. Advocacy worker. So someone who supports vulnerable people to have their voice be told. Maybe big decisions are being made about their life, and that worker is going to make sure their best interests are considered. Fantastic. Social care is winning that one, and that is indeed the right sector. If you remember on the pre-work, we asked you to look at all these job roles in the links. Okay, and last one, general practitioner, your GP, your main doctor who you would go to around the corner or wherever you live. Fantastic. We've got 100% there in primary care. So thank you so much for engaging with that. Just to warm us up and start us off, I'm going to be delving a little bit deeper and asking you to answer a few more meatier questions in a moment. Before we do, I just want to go through with you about primary care just to summarise what we've gone through. So primary care is your first point of contact within the healthcare system. It acts as the front door of the NHS. So they focus on preventing illness, making diagnosis and treating conditions that don't need hospital care. So all those roles that you rightly predicted were primary care. So for example, I've got asthma. Unfortunately, it's only mild, thankfully. I go to my GP and I say, can you just check everything's okay? Can you prescribe me with some inhalers? That's primary care. They then send me to another primary care role. I go to the pharmacy and I get my medication. Thankfully, I have never needed hospital care, so all I need at this point is primary care roles to support me. Okay, so social care is, let me just hope this loads, there we go. Supporting people to maintain their independence, dignity and control. It provides people with personal and practical support to help people live their lives. So that could be having carers come into their home, or it could be people who live in care homes, maybe with physical illnesses or mental illnesses. My nan, unfortunately, for the last 3 years of her life, had dementia and lived in a care home, and the amazing support that her social care workers had is absolutely brilliant. So it's just a wonderful, wonderful sector that I can't praise enough. So I want you to really know this. If anything from the pre-work, this is so important. Employees working in social care are not always employed by the NHS. Okay, there are social care jobs within the NHS, but many of them are not within the NHS. So in the pre-work, we introduced you to Skills for Care. Now, you're going to be hearing more about Skills for Care today, but they're an independent charity working with social care employers in England to set standards and qualifications for social care workers. So they make sure basically that all social care workers in all settings are qualified and up to standards to do the job brilliantly. Okay, so with that in mind, we're going to go to the next part of the pre-work session. And we've warmed up. I want you to be as engaged as possible. Get that chat firing for me, please. So this is what I want you to consider. Think about your pre-work again. Get into the chat. What do the below all have in common? Think about what your pre-work quiz was. A, dignity and respect. B, learning and reflection. C, working together. And D, commitment to quality care and support. What do they all have in common? Think about your pre-work. Come on, in the chat, think carefully. Have a guess. If you're not sure, think. You just see that. Where might you demonstrate all of those above? So what do you think? Okay. So okay, can anyone in the chat wanna let me know about that? Okay, vital to healthcare roles. Thank you, Sarah. Okay, someone just told me that you can see my presenter mode rather than the actual mode. Apologies about that. That's just technical issues. We'll just have to deal with that and ignore it for now. Okay, so we're a little bit quiet on the chat today. So what I wanted to share with you really is these are values within social care. That's Skills for Care highlight. Okay, so within any job that you have to, within healthcare, we have to show that you share the values of that institution. So can anyone in the chat now finish this sentence for me? Before we think about what values are and how we can share values in healthcare, if we apply for a job, you show that you share the values of that institution. What are values? Can anyone in the chat finish that question for me, that sentence? What are values? Now, if you're struggling, think of this. If we put the hint up, think about what the word value means, okay? And then finish that sentence in the chat for me. What are values? We need to know what they are before we can say that we share them. Come on, guys. Come on, I know it's late, I know it's dark. You're leaving me hanging here. I'm just rattling on to myself in my presenter view. Anyone going to share any thoughts and feelings? Thank you so much. Okay, brilliant. Beliefs about right and wrong. I really appreciate you reaching out and helping me out of a pickle there. So thank you very much. So brilliant. Beliefs about right and wrong. Getting tongue twisted now. Things you believe are important. Okay, so let's just summarize that. Values are the beliefs and views that people hold about what is right and wrong. They apply to all aspects of life and influence how a person behaves in different situations. Okay, so with that in mind, whenever you apply to any healthcare role, you need to show that you share the same values as that organisation. So those earlier values from Skills for Care that I shared, if you were going for a social work job, a social care job with them, you would have to demonstrate that you show all of those values in your everyday life. And it is the same with the NHS values as well. So just to show you, within every pre-work that we do, that we send out, we always have this NHS slide. Now, we're not going to focus on the NHS values today, we're going to focus on the social care values, but just so you're aware, it's the same with the NHS. You have to show that if you're applying for social care or primary care within NHS, you have to show that you share their values. You can help practice that in the pre-work pack that's sent out in every Creating Careers episode. There's a values challenge that you help practice that on. But before, rather than do that, we're going to focus on the social care values that we've already looked at. So how could you demonstrate these values in your life? So I'm going to bring those values back up again, and I want you in the chat to think about, for each value, how could you, or someone around you, doesn't necessarily have to be you, you could be giving advice to someone, how could they demonstrate those values in their everyday life? Now, you don't only have to pick one. I'm not asking you to pick all four. So what I want you to do, use in the chat, pick a value, write the corresponding letter, and give your explanation. So if for example, if you were choosing B, learning and reflection, you just put B and your explanation. So how can you in your life show learning and reflection? Now, to help you think about your school life, Where do you show dignity and respect? Where do you show learning and reflection? Come on, you should be doing that all day, every day. Where do you show working together? Commitment to quality care and supporting other people. Think about your school life, think about your personal life, part-time work, voluntary work, extracurricular clubs and hobbies. How can you show those values in your life? Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much for contribution, Shani. Take care of everyone and treat them equally, so we can show the value of dignity and respect by showing in our lives we take care of everyone and treat them equally. That's fantastic. Has anyone else got anything else they want to share on that? While you're having a think, I'll just share an example that I know that Leon has very often shared, and I thought it was brilliant. So it always sticks in my mind about a student who used the example of a rescue cat to show that they shared the values of the healthcare system. Okay, so this is how you need to think outside the box. You might not necessarily have had experience working in the care home setting or caring for someone or working in primary care, but you can use your experience in your outside life in other ways to show that you have those values. So Leon's example of this student who used a rescue cat. So straight away, you can show dignity and respect because you've given this animal dignity. You showed it respect by saving it, by valuing its life. Okay, learning and reflection. I am sure that by rescuing a cat, that individual will have had to have worked with the rescue to learn about how to look after the animal properly and reflect on how they are caring for them and reflect on how they would maybe treat animals in the future. See, working together, you would have to work with the rescue to make sure you get the animal together, make sure it's safe. You'd have to work with people in your family to make sure that you've got a proper care system set up for the animal. And D, commitment to quality care and support. Well, you're giving a home to an animal, you're looking after it for its whole life. You are committing to supporting that animal. And there's just an example in your life that you can demonstrate all 4 values from. You could do it about your schoolwork. You're learning and reflecting every single day. You're working in teams, you're playing any sports teams. You can show that you're working together there. Commitment to quality care and support. Do you care for any of your relatives? Do you have a sibling who you take to school every day and you look after, you help them with their work? So all of these values can be put into your everyday life. So do not be put off with any applications about any kind of applications about values. You have them totally in your life. It doesn't have to be necessarily that setting that you apply for, but you can show them in other areas of your life. So think outside the box. So just to finish off, what I want you to think about is at Creating Careers, we offer one-to-one mentoring support. Now, I'm not going to ask you your thoughts and feelings about this, so you don't have to be shy. I'm just going to ask you to answer on a poll. We offer one-to-one mentoring to support your pathway into a career within health and social care. So you get a 12-month deal, basically, where if you come onto our episodes and our events, you then for 12 months have a mentoring offer where you can get in touch with us and we will offer you, one-to-one advice and guidance. And the big relief is it won't be me who will be haunting you for 12 months. It'll be someone much lovelier, won't be setting you any pre-work. So I want to know, are you interested in one-to-one 12-month mentoring? A poll's going to come up for you. You've got 3 options: yes, not sure, and no. Just let me know how you feel. I'm not going to ask you to share any. I know sometimes that's not. Come on, we have more people voting earlier than 1. Let's get your thoughts and feelings. And we don't know any names. We're not going to highlight people how they're answering. I'm not going to ask you to explain. Just let us know how you're feeling. Okay. So looking at that poll result, thank you for those who have voted. That actually is looking quite positive, I'd say. So we've got, in the past, we had more people saying no, so we've had a little bit of a shift. People aren't sure, and one person saying they want that. So make sure that you, that person who wants that, make sure you get in touch with us, and we will get that offer over to you. Those who aren't sure, if there's anything we can do to reassure you or answer any questions about that, please get in touch. And I would recommend that you watch our first episode on mental health careers, because we do talk a lot more about mentoring there. So that is me on time, 10:02 on the dot, and I am going to hand over now to the next part of the session. Thank you so much for getting involved, Anna. See you on next week's for the dreaded pre-work.
Hi everybody, I'm Sharon Blaney and I'm from Liverpool City Combined Authority, and our guest who's going to speak to us today about social care is Lindsay Dawson. Lindsay's the head of area for skills for care for the North West, and she's got a vast amount of experience. She's going to do a little brief introduction about social care, just to remind you of the things we spoke about last season, and then I'll be asking her some questions so we can support your learning and give you the information that you would need. Okay, can I hand over to you? Thanks, Lindsay.
You can, no problem, and thanks for the opportunity. And Leslie Ann has geared us up beautifully for my presentation, so thank you very much for that. So I'm literally going to enhance a little bit about what Leslie Ann has talked about what social care is. So if somebody could move the slide on for me, that would be great. Okay, so as Leslie Ann said, social care is about providing that personal and practical support to help people to live their lives. So what that means is about supporting someone to live their life like you and I do, about making decisions about what time they get up in the morning, about what they want to do with their day, what they would like to eat, who they'd like to see, making those day-to-day decisions that you and I may take for granted that somebody might need some additional support for. So it could be helping someone out with their daily tasks, like Leanne talked about. And it's about making sure that as someone that works in social care, you're helping someone to have their own choice and decisions and to maintain what we call that independence to do so. So it isn't just about personal care for older people. Yes, we are looking for people that provide that personal care, but we're also looking for a range of other individuals as well. And we support people that are younger adults that may live in their own home. We might support somebody that has a learning disability or a physical disability or needs some support for helping them because of their sensory needs. And we could actually help people in their own home and someone that has what's called their own personal budget. So they take control of who looks after them and who they recruit to look after them. So as I've said, not all jobs provide social care. There are administrative jobs. So if you like working in an office, there's lots of roles around that. If you're good at things like woodwork or design and technology, or you like drama or music, or you're doing PE and coaching, all of those roles can be available in adult social care. So it's just really about thinking a bit differently about what social care is. It might not be what you expect. So on the next slide, Leslie Ann has already talked about these values. So if you can bring up those values, please. You may be surprised that actually those values are more important than the qualifications. You will be given huge amounts of opportunity to learn. You will be learning from day one because there's an induction that you have to take. But actually what employers are looking for are people that care, that have those right attitudes and behaviours that we've just talked about to promote dignity and respect, to make sure that you learn, not just from learning on the job and the education that you have to do working in social care, but actually learning from the people that you support. And they're really looking for someone that will be that person's support and help them to make the decisions, as I've said, that you and I take for granted. So they want people that are going to turn up on time, that are willing to be flexible, that are caring, that offer that support in the way that the individual wants, and that someone's professional and has ultimately, which is the last bullet, that commitment to providing that care. And it's in that way. It's about being there. It's about being that support for that person in the way that they would like that support and being really, truly caring. So what roles and routes in are there in social care? So if we can move on to the next slide, there's going to be a whole list here that comes up of various things that you can go away and do a little bit of research into. But you may think about volunteering in a care home, for example, as a route in to start your career. You might take a part-time job, working evening at weekends whilst you're still studying. You might want to look at an apprenticeship in adult social care. You might want to look at some social care providers' own websites where they look to recruit, or their Facebook pages, for instance, or a local authority website. And I know that we've got lots of websites here as well where opportunities are promoted. So I would recommend that you have a look at them. Get up to date with the range of opportunities and the different types of roles. So we've got lots of case studies and videos that you can have a look at. And this last slide shows you where you can go in social care. It gives you the different roles, the skills that you might need, the training opportunities associated with this role. So I've known people that have started their careers as volunteers that have been chief execs running their own business. So the sky's the limit, really, in terms of a career in social care. And you can find out all of that information on that website link below, including an interactive quiz where you can work out if you've got that right heart and those right values to work in social care. And it gives you a little report around that. So I'm now just going to talk very briefly about how I got into social care. My career journey didn't start in social care. So I left school with 9 GCSEs and 4 A-levels and decided that I wanted to go into the world of work. Didn't want to go to university. That was my choice. I wanted to go and get some work and life experience. So I started off working in insurance. I worked for a building society head office, but within that role, there was training, there was leadership and management of a team, and managing the work of the team to make sure that we were meeting the targets and what we needed to meet to deliver the overall plan of that building society. Then I got made redundant. So I fell into social care because I went to work in an administrative role in a social services department in a local authority. But whilst I was there, I took the opportunity to do further vocational learning at college at night. So I did a business administration MVQ. And then as I started to be able to use that as an opportunity to progress, I was able to consolidate all of my previous experience leading, training and managing teams to actually go to university part-time and do a postgraduate qualification. So I've done a mixture of vocational and academic learning to progress in my career. I'm still learning now. Every day I'm learning. I've recently done a coaching and mentoring qualification. I've also done a level 5 diploma in management. So bringing all of those skills that I had and developed right at the very start of my career, I'm still using now. And that's given me an opportunity to go from being an administrator in a social services department to heading up a team in the Northwest within Skills for Care, which is an organisation, as you've heard, that supports all those adult social care employers across England. So there are 17,700 organisations working across 39,000 different locations of adult social care. And we've got about 1.54 million people working in adult social care. So it's big and it's exciting and it's a great career. So thanks for listening to that presentation. Sharon, anything else you want to ask me?
Gosh, I think you've answered a lot of it, but hey ho, here goes. You've done most of my job for me. Thank you.
That's good.
So the job that you're doing at the moment then, Lindsay,
Yes.
I know it's a managerial job, but how does it link into social care specifically? You know, what sort of activities does your job entail that links into social care?
So on a daily basis, I can be talking to a registered manager from an adult social care organisation about recruitment and retention. So how they look after their staff and how they attract people, which is kind of what today is about, into working in adult social care. Or I could be on a call with colleagues from the NHS, thinking about how we work collaboratively and work together to make the journey for somebody accessing social care and health a little bit better. So they don't have to keep retelling the story to every person that they come into contact. So it can be very strategic. It can be very much around leading and managing a team, or it can be working with a group of people that work in social care around anything to do with learning and development, leadership and management, recruitment, and understanding what we know about the adult social care sector, and get the opportunity to do great things like this today.
Wonderful, thanks for that. So what's your most favourite part of the job that you're doing at the moment?
I love this part of my job is working with people, and it's meeting different people every single day. And that may be somebody that draws on care and support and learning about their life history and their journey. Or, as I said, it could be working with, directors and regional directors across the NHS with the Department of Health and Social Care. But it's about people, and it's about interacting people to make sure that what we do as an organisation is the best that it can be. And that's the bit that I love. So that communication, being able to influence people and get to know people. So what we deliver as Skills for Care is the best it can be to make a difference, and ultimately make a difference for those people that are being supported.
Thank you for that. So if you were to give any advice to a student who's interested in your area of work within social care, what would it be, Lindsay?
I'd absolutely say don't dismiss social care. I never thought about a career in social care. My direction of travel was somewhere else. And as I said earlier, I kind of fell into it. I'd really encourage you to find out more about the options and where you can go. You can absolutely run your own business. You can absolutely support somebody to have lots of fun in their life like you have lots of fun. So support worker roles, supporting with adults with a learning disability are fabulous for that. I'd say give it a go. I'd say, think about the fact that every day is different, and actually making a difference can be incredibly rewarding. It's extremely varied. You've got lots of opportunities. So please just think about it, because it's fab.
So the skills that you learned at school and the knowledge that you learned, what do you think is actually transferable to what you're doing in social care?
I think what I didn't really kind of probably grasp is that all the analysis skills that you learn whilst you're doing English and history, you present and interpret information and you give your opinion on it. That analysis of being able to study and work out what the evidence base is and sort of make a judgment on that is really important. And that English language communication skills is really important. And the aspect of learning and reflection, what went well, what would be even better if, I think are really good skills to take with you. I have control of a budget, so I have to do numbers, I have to do percentages, I have to look at means and averages and interpret data. Definitely skills in IT, which this audience will have far greater than me, but I use lots of Microsoft packages, Word, PowerPoint, Excel. We have lots of databases, Microsoft Teams, Zoom. All of that is a day-to-day occurrence. You need really good skills in that. And I think the whole aspect of learning of sort of, that general time management, balancing your work and your life. Believe it or not, I was never very good at these two subjects, art and geography. And you think, well, why do you need that in social care? When I go out and about and meet people, even with the sat nav, I do get lost. So I've done lots of map reading of where, okay, that's not where I thought it was going to be, and using good old Google Maps to find out where I need to go. And art and graphics, thinking about presenting information in a different way to different audiences. And I was never very good at art, but I've been in events where I've had to draw to express what we're trying to do and, to show how systems work together. So yeah, a little bit of art and graphics too, which I really didn't think I'd be using.
Thank you, Lindsay. That's been really informative, and I'm sure it's been very helpful to the students who are listening there. And you've just opened up a whole list of opportunities around social care, and you're so passionate about it. It comes through. So thank you so much for that. If anyone's got any questions, you can put them in the chat and we can potentially answer them later. Well, thanks so much, Lindsay. That was really good. Thank you so much.
No problem whatsoever. Thanks for listening.
Okay, so we now should be moving on to our next guest, who is Jonathan Henderson. Jonathan, are you there? Hello.
I apologise. It's been a long time since I've been on Zoom because we use Teams, so it's just finding my way around the buttons. But yes, I'm here.
Great. Oh, thank you for joining us, and I'm sure you'll agree that Lindsay's presentation was really interesting there. So we want to come to you for the same sort of information there. Did you have some slides you wanted to show us?
Yeah, I can share them. I weren't sure whether you were sharing them, but I'll
So Jonathan is the Senior Project Manager at Greater Manchester Primary Care Transformation Team. It's a bit of a mouthful, but I'm sure he'll explain what that all means.
I certainly will. So can everyone see that now? Is that okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone can see that? Or is that gone off?
You.
Yeah, you can see it?
Fine.
Right, that's brilliant. That's excellent. Yeah, so I'll just introduce myself because I've actually just changed my job in the last week as well. So it's still for primary care. It's still in the same department. But
career progression.
A career progression. It's a good fail, but I'll leave it for another time. So yeah, I was a senior project manager within the primary care workforce team, and now I'm a program manager in the primary workforce transformational team. So about primary care, I think I have had my thunder stolen by everybody who's presented before this, because I think they've done a sterling job. They've said exactly what primary care is, and I think Lindsay's presentation was fantastic. So I'll head on. Mine's very basic. I might ask for a bit of interaction as well. So it's just around anybody either putting in, I can't see the chat because I'm presenting, but if you can turn your microphone off, and if you can please, you don't have to stick your camera on, but if you can just answer me, and they're very easy questions. So what is primary care? So as we've said earlier on, and I think it's been well explained, primary care is the first level of care that patients receive. And it's focused on patients' well-being and the prevention, which is a really good word, of severe health conditions. So does everyone know what the prevention is? Yeah, and what we're trying to do within primary care with the word prevention? I'll take that as a yes. And if you don't, please put it in the chat. I'll look it up. Thanks, Lindsay. Secondary care is more specialised, and it's more focused on helping patients who are struggling with more severe and complex health conditions, requiring a support of a specialist. So these patients are people who are in hospital, who have gone past the point, if you like, of interactive services within a primary care level. So the way that Lindsay said with her care and her social is this is where it all connects up. So your first real protocol is primary care, but I think your first real stop within a service is social care. And I think it's that point, as if you put these in order, I would say it was social care, primary care, secondary care. And giving an example of that would be elderly patient being looked after in a care home in social care. Got an infection of the eye, so the people looking after him will approach primary care pharmacy, which we've stated earlier on, and get some antibiotic eye drops for that patient. If he wasn't in social care and he was living at home and he'd got an eye infection, and let's say he did nothing about that, and then that infection was transferred to his throat, then his chest, then he started to develop a more severe. Yeah, in that period of time, he'd probably visit primary care himself and get some, might go to the GP, might go to the pharmacy. If he hadn't done that and he gets to a severe point, then he will probably end up admitted through secondary care, even if he turns up at primary care at a real advanced point. So that person's chest infection could have turned to pneumonia, which is really serious stuff. And then they would go into the secondary care system. So it's a very simple system. If you think of social care first, then your primary care, and that's more around your treatment, if you like, and then secondary care. So what is primary care? Well, it is the front door, and I think everyone said that within this meeting. It is the front door. It's the first point of healthcare. The primary care service is proactive. And can somebody give me an example of proactive and reactive? Anybody? Please don't feel under pressure. This is no pressure at all. It's just an example that you may have experienced, which you've been proactive in, or been reactive in, or wished you'd been more proactive in when you were reactive. And don't worry.
It might be easier. It might be easier if you could share that, please.
If everyone's shy, don't worry. Don't worry at all. No, I'll give examples. It's absolutely fine. So simple example, nothing to do with primary care. I go in my fridge and I've got a quarter of milk left. I have a choice to either go to the shop and replace before I'm left out, or I finish it and then I go to the shop, which will delay my brew potentially if I want one in the future. So the thing about being proactive is catching the milk before it's empty and replacing it. And being reactive is emptying the milk and then going to the shop, because I have to react to go to the shop for more milk because I'm empty. So if you think of the service like that, the primary care service is very proactive and the secondary care service is very reactive. So they react to conditions. They've gone to a serious level that they have to be admitted, whereas your primary care is getting those conditions early and sorting out treatment for them in any way we can. So if it's breathing difficulties, it may be an early sign of asthma, to get the inhalers. There's no admission to a hospital. They'll be seen again and reviewed at the GP. There's lots of circumstances that I could mention around primary care being proactive, but it's very proactive and it's day-to-day care as well. So integration or integrated. Now, I was going to say, does anybody know what that means? But I'm pretty sure I'll simple. Integration is something that people use, and especially around software. So if people play on Xboxes and PlayStation 4s, and there'll be certain games that work on the PlayStation 4, and there'll be certain games that work on the Xbox, but you can't play together. And then there's certain games like Fortnite that you can play together on both. And what that means is they've integrated that software. And it's the same within the services. What we try and do is integrate the services. So we're trying to integrate both the pathways for patients coming into services and going to and from other services. So coming into the GP, getting referred into the clinic, getting referred to other clinics or other areas where they'll be referred into, which is a separate course of treatment. So what we try and do is we try and make that really streamlined, and we try and integrate them services to make it that patient's journey as fast, as quick, as easy as possible for that patient to go through. We don't just integrate services, we integrate people and disciplines. And what we're doing at the moment is really trying to integrate a lot of disciplines around primary care and really support GPs, for example, within their clinics and their services. So if you've got, and I can give a great example of integration, is the fact of, if you've got a GP running a clinic, now GPs were quite short of, so GP leaves the practice that they're working at, and they're a GP down and we can't replace them, or we're having troubles replacing them. What we've got to do, and this is part of what we do as a program management office as well, is we have a look at how we can replace that GP like for like, and is it possible? And if it's not possible, how can we support the services within there that they might do without that GP? So it might mean that we might have to, if another practice runs a diabetic clinic, this particular GP practice has on average 6 out of the 10 patients, and this is exaggerated, this is not real, 6 out of 10 patients are diabetic, then we could actually might be able to invest in another nurse in that clinic to take on patients so they're reviewed more regularly, which cut down the GP's lists, which means that GP is then supported as a single GP, not 2 GPs. And that is just a really simple example. And the other thing we're trying to do is integrate health and social, which is exactly what Judith was saying, Lindsay was saying earlier on. So we're trying to break down the barriers and kind of make that influential journey really, really fluent throughout the services. And we're, as I've said at the bottom, and I've just given an example of multidisciplinary teams working together. So just a simple statistic, we do 300 million patient consultations annually, compared to 23 million A&E visits. So for me, if we weren't doing the 300 million consultations, how basically would our hospitals be able to survive in A&E? And the answer is no. So as my last slide is, and you were all excellent on your questions earlier on, is, so what is primary care made up of? Well, it's initially made up of, we've got 500 GP practices, we have dental services, and we've got 450 of them. We've got community optometry, so we've got 300 optometry practices, and we've got 700 community pharmacies all around Greater Manchester. So within primary care, there are over 350 different NHS careers. So they might be under the same discipline, but careers are so vast and wide. And I think when people think of the NHS, primary care, whatever that is, and I used to have a bit of an issue with this, and I'll explain when we get into the questions, is, you know, I think everyone thinks that treatment is run by doctors and nurses. And doctors and nurses account for quite a good chunk of the staffing workforce, but everybody else is a higher percentage, and that's the way I look at it. So you've got your 4 disciplines here, each one will have about 20 roles within it. So you'll have general practice, you'll have admin staff, you will have nurses in there, you'll have healthcare assistants, you'll have IT as well. So we need IT experts that are provided, contracted to these GP practices. We'll have practice managers, GPs, junior doctors, we'll have trainee nurses, trainee doctors. There's loads of roles within every single one of these occupations and these practices. And this is where we're trying to highlight at this point is part of our programs and our work. And I will go into it, give an example, is that example I give earlier on about a like-for-like replacement in retention. When it's not on the table, when you can't do it, you have to then, as a program manager or as any other manager, think, how can we fill the gap if we can't get that staff? And that's going into what the questions will go into a bit later on, Sharon. So there's my presentation, very easy, very straightforward, very informal. And is there any questions by anybody? And please don't be afraid not to.
I think what we'll do then, I've just got some questions I'd like to ask you, and if there are any questions, they can ask them in the chat. But thank you, that was really interesting. Absolutely. And that figure that you shared about, you know, the intervention primary care has in relation to A&E, gosh, that blew my mind. So thank you for that. So in relation to your pathway into the job that you're doing now, the career that you're in, how did you get into? Was it something, were you in healthcare previously? How did it work for you?
Just a bit of a story, like what Lindsay said. I obviously left school and got my GCSEs. I wasn't the most academic person, I'll give you that, because I met girls when I was a bit younger, so it was one of those things. So I did managed to get my GCSEs, and I went to do my A-levels, and I weren't convinced by my A-levels or a university. It wasn't me. I was more practical, hands-on, wanted to get into a job, but I didn't want to rush into just any job. It had to be a job that I would enjoy, or at least gave me a career. So I've completed my first year of A-levels, and a pharmacy technician apprenticeship came up in Foundation Trust in Bolton, where I live. So I applied for that. I was lucky enough to get the position. That was a 2-year apprenticeship, and I was there for 21 years. Gosh. So during that career, because it was a fantastic career, and being a pharmacy technician, I think it's getting more publicised now, but it wasn't when obviously 20 years ago, 25 years ago, it wasn't as publicised, but it has changed a lot. So I was a part of the era that changed the role. So we went into automation, which is robotic drug dispensing. We went into medicines management, which was basically dispensing medicines on the wards, working with the nursing teams, making a multidisciplinary team. So I basically, by the time I was a senior manager there, my staff were basically employed on the wards. They weren't employed in pharmacy, which was groundbreaking. And they were a part of the multidisciplinary team with the nurses. So they'd join the ward rounds, find out who was going to go home, when they were going to go home, and plan their medicines and discharge and complete that, so there wasn't a delay on discharge. Plus with the MDTs, then you get involved with the social care aspect as well. So it was linking up, hey, when the patient go home, and most of the time with medicines in hospital, it's always the medicines that delay the discharge. So we were trying to solve that issue. And throughout all this work that I did, I put an electronic medicines management and electronic discharge system in at the hospital. And while I was doing that project, if you like, I just found a love for projects. I realized I liked the planning. I was very proactive. My communication was quite strong, and it was somebody who in the hospital who recommended going for a project management role. So after 21 years, which is scary as a pharmacist here, which I'd got my diploma and everything in, I had a total career change. And not only was I working at an FT, which is in a locality, which is Bolton, I was lucky enough to successfully get a senior project management job in Greater Manchester. So it was a real big change in the fact of going from a locality to the whole of Greater Manchester and changing your career into a senior project manager was daunting.
And this happens quite a lot within the healthcare sector. People go in to start doing one thing and it just progresses. You know, I call it the TARDIS. When you open those doors, there's so many opportunities behind them. So from your, from your school days, what particularly from a skills and a knowledge point of view, what helped you, do you think, in the role that you're in now, or, the pathway you took? What did you take with you from school?
You see, the thing is, I know what other people should take from school, but I think when I was at school, I didn't really analyse myself and what my strengths and weaknesses were at all. And I was just me, being me. But when I turn around to think about it and where I've ended, and when you have a bit of a bit of reflection on where you've been to where you are now, and I think I did have these strong things, like communication was always a real strong tool. I got on with everyone at school. It was just one of them things. I prefer to get on with everybody and get everything. And part of program management and project management is pulling people together, is making people work together under one aim. And so that was a massive strength. I think I'm driven and proactive. And I think a lot of people were. So I enjoyed a lot of stuff like football, etc., etc. And I was very driven at it. So I knew I was driven, and anything I put my mind to, I was quite driven. I'd gone to my apprenticeship, and at that point, it was that where I think at school, I wasn't very focused on education. But once I got that apprenticeship, I achieved immense amount of things. I really got into it. And I think it was the fact of, and it doesn't suit everybody, is I always wanted to, it sounds awful this, but a pay-as-you-earn job.
Absolutely,
and that benefited me in a way. And the fact is that, like you said earlier on, you can change your career. You don't know where you're going to end up. I was a clinician. Now I'm not a clinician. I am program managing, and I'm program managing clinicians. But that knowledge that I've got in the background of the NHS coming through is invaluable, because you've got a real good knowledge of the service. So what we're doing now is like Kickstarter Programs, which are government initiatives for people who are not working from 17 to 24. And what our initiative is not just to think about the roles that they're getting into, but have they thought about a career? Because like you said earlier on, Sharon, I think you can get in, you could start as an admin staff and a reception staff. And why not in 5 years' time be a nurse? Why not?
Exactly. We've met so many people who've started. We had one guy who started as a porter and ended up as a mental health nurse, And
it's fantastic development, because if you're committed and you're good and you and you enjoy your work, I think it shows.
Yeah.
And
so just from the session today, then, I mean, what would you like our students to take away from the session today about primary care, about working in primary care? What would you like them to take away from this today?
I think I'd like them to take away the fact of there is a heck of a lot of careers within primary care, all sorts of careers, from engineering to there's all sorts of careers, and there's 350 of them across a lot of interesting areas. And I'd say if you take anything away from this, is that don't be afraid to to look at something, to apply for things, to go for things, to, you know, even if it's not where you want to be at that point, or if it's not like, oh well, no, I never saw myself doing that. It's not that you might do that forever. Sometimes it's the step way into the world that we live in, and just go for it. And I think
absolutely. That's brilliant advice. Thank you so much for joining us this evening, because you've given us a really clear insight into primary care and the opportunities again that are on offer there. So you're in a bit of a challenge situation with Lindsay there. Which way do you go, primary care, social care? So thank you very much to you, Jonathan. I thought that was really interesting. Thank you. So I'm going to hand over to my colleague, and if there are any questions, I'm sure they'll go in the chat and we can answer them. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. So just for the last couple of minutes before we sign off, we're going to take you through the next steps of what you can expect in terms of support from us, and where you can go to get a little bit more information if you need it. So I will just pop my slide back up. So in terms of next steps, we have covered loads of information today, and we know that some of you have requested that you want to be able to watch a recording of it, or you've got friends who weren't able to make it tonight. These videos, all the webinars, they do go up on the Liverpool City Region Careers Hub YouTube channel, so you can watch them back, have an extra think about them. So that'll be up kind of shortly, and all the other ones are there as well. You'll receive either later this evening or early tomorrow morning a follow-up email from my colleague Abby, who is the one who sent out the Zoom link and everything to you today. This is a really important email. One of the first things you'll receive in it is your postwork, which has been created by Leslie Ann, and the first page of it looks a little bit like this. The roadmap and the kind of postwork is designed to help you reflect on what you've learned. So not just doing a webinar, going away and maybe forgetting about it or not thinking about it in context. It's designed so that you're able to kind of do the webinar and really think about it in your own context. The pre-work gives you all the information that you need to really get the most out of it. And then this roadmap helps you consolidate it and also start to build some of those kind of reflective skills that are really important for a healthcare degree or a healthcare career as well. So you'll receive this roadmap in your follow-up email, and we'd really just encourage you to complete it properly, spend a little bit of time on it. It will be useful for you yourself, but also if you are a little bit further down the line of applying for courses, jobs, apprenticeships, whatever that might be, you'll have this to reflect on when you're filling in things like statements, personal statements, anything like that. Okay, your follow-up email will contain your roadmap. It'll also give you an evaluation link. That's a really short evaluation. It's about 5 questions. It'll take you less than 5 minutes to tell us what you sort of thought of today. So if you need anything else, if you didn't understand any of it, it helps us make any kind of future webinars a little bit better, and make sure they're really tailored to your needs. But it also gives you the opportunity to request a one-to-one follow-up. So that is, it will be a member of the Uni Connect for your area. So I work for Shaping Futures. We cover the Liverpool City region. We've got Emma on the call, who's from Greater Manchester. You can imagine they cover Greater Manchester, and there are Uni Connects for all of the Northwest. Okay, so you'll be able to receive follow-up one-to-one to really understand, well, I'm interested in this career. What do I need to do next? What might be useful for me? I've got this really specific question around finance, anything like that. So you can do that through your evaluation form, and then about a week after you complete it, we'll collate all that data and you'll receive the support. There's also an option for a Google Classroom. Now, if your school didn't use one of these sorry, just checking the chat, any questions for me? If your school didn't use Google Classroom as part of the kind of lockdown learning experience, it's basically an online virtual learning environment. We post all kinds of resources, either things that ourselves as Uni Connect have got, different universities that make up our partnerships and colleges, things from different health education boards. It's all there in kind of one massive depository. So you'll be added to that, and we really encourage you to have a little look around and really kind of make sure that you're taking advantage of what's being provided. And finally, this as I said earlier, this isn't a one-off webinar, it is a series of webinars. So you will have visited this website to have signed up today, but we'll resend the link in the follow-up email. And basically we would just encourage you, if you think anything's even a little bit interesting, do sign up, do come along, and hopefully you'll get a lot out of it. As you know, this is season 2, and we had some students for season 1 who attended pretty much every webinar we offered, and they said that they found it helpful to have other perspectives, and then when they've gone for interviews, things like that, they've been able to sort of talk about things like multidisciplinary teams or understanding of what's kind of other healthcare roles and how they work with the role they're specifically interested in. So that is pretty much everything from me. I'm just going to check in the chat if there's any questions for me. Nope. So that is pretty much it. We will stay on the call for a little minute if you need anything else, but otherwise, thank you guys so much for coming.